We don't know.
She's in the club.
Yours? Yeah.
Not me, not me, not me, not me, not me.
Hi there. Yes. Can you hear me now, John?
Getting movement in that speaker
Yes.
box.
Yep, we have you.
Good job.
Okay,
That would be accepted.
so if you couldn't hear, we have a public meeting, public hearing. It is currently open in regards to the budget, the 25-26 preliminary biennial budget. If you have something to say in regards to that, you have 5 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Do we,
See anyone saying that?
do we need to have the person who spoke earlier go back and speak again, or?
It's,
Oh,
yeah,
it's in
we're
there,
we're
okay.
good there, so. Okay, not seeing anyone further, I will close the public hearing. We'll move on to a review of council minutes. Councilmember Fullerton, Councilmember Hubler.
I did not see any changes.
I did not either.
Okay, excellent. Good job, staff. Now on to council open discussion. Councilmember Fullerton.
Yeah, so last week we actually approved the RCO grant for the Allen York Park boat trailer parking. And it was for a grant for $1 million to help pay for the $4.5 million parking lot for boat trailer. However, Deputy Mayor Swatman asked that we receive the original deed to the Allen York grant that we originally received. I believe it was like 1972. And we also received pictures of the areas that were covered under that original grant. There was a land swap in 1986 that removed the north portion of the parking area where the senior center is, as well as the courthouse that we're going to be tearing down to make the property, to make that parking lot happen. So that top portion was removed and then swapped out for like wetlands, so that we could use the property for park or whatever. So that basically means that the whole entire property that we want to use to make the parking lot for the boat trailer parking is not under that original grant. That original grant is very restrictive on things that we can and can't do with Allen York Park. If we receive $1 million grant, that those same restrictions are going to apply. So in the future, if we do accept that $1 million grant for to help pay for the parking lot, that would restrict future council members or councils from charging more for parking or not allowing for non-residents to not park in the parking lot if we ever need to restrict it for anything. So it would restrict future councils from having control over who can and can't park in that parking lot. And since it appears that none of the parking lot now would be under that original grant. So it seems to me like maybe we should reconsider our vote now that we have more evidence or more information on that $1 million grant. Is it worth tying the hands of future councils just to receive $1 million that isn't even a third of what we need for to build the whole entire parking lot? So I didn't know, I know that Jason and his team, the city staff, are going to be using a lot of time to hurry up and quickly get that grant in processed so that they can send it in before October 31st of this year. So I wanted to just see if the council wanted to reconsider with the new information that we have, that this parking lot would not be under the original grant, which has a lot of restrictions on it in perpetuity. And if we accept a $1 million grant, that would also be in perpetuity, which means forever and ever you have no control over what you can and can't do if you're going to be charging for parking, or if you want to change it for any reason, if for some reason you want to make it a park instead of boat trailer parking. You can't make any changes because this would be specifically for boat trailer parking, period. And so that we would be obligated to maintain it and continue to use it as boat trailer parking in perpetuity. So I just wanted to ask the council if they wanted to reconsider that vote, tying the hands for $1 million of a grant when we actually do have the money to pay for the parking lot, which does need to be put into place because of restrictions from the original grant. I don't know if we want to reconsider, give a head nod that we'd like to reconsider so that at least, and then we can bring it back at a later time to vote again. But if we give them a head nod tonight that we want to reconsider as a majority, then that would save them time, effort, and money on applying for a grant. Or I don't know if Jason has anything he wants to say about that either.
Is this something you guys voted on last?
We voted last week. It was AB 105, Resolution R 24105. It was the RCO grant for $1 million for the Allen York Park boat trailer parking.
Okay. Okay, let's go to Jennifer first. She can probably help us with this.
Yeah, I thought I would just share with you. Yeah, a motion to reconsider is in order when it's made either the night that the action is taken or in the next meeting immediately after. So since the vote was last week, a motion to reconsider would be timely if made tonight. The only thing different about a motion to reconsider, other that is a little different than a regular motion, is it has to be made by someone who was on the prevailing side of the original vote. So anyone that vote, anyone that voted in favor of it can make the motion to reconsider. If the motion to reconsider is passed, what that does is then you guys would need to make a new motion to either to pass it or not pass it, but it would undo the, it allows you to re-vote on it. So you would have to have the two motions, one, a motion that passes to reconsider, and then second, new decision on the item before you. So.
We typically don't vote at workshops, so would we need to make a motion also to take a vote? Suspend the rules?
Yeah, you can suspend your rules, I think. I don't know what your rules actually say about voting at workshops, but you can always, by a majority vote to suspend your rules so that you can put this on the floor at a workshop. Also, generally, before action is taken under the Open Public Meetings Act, you're required to hold public comment. So you might want to have you can do it before or after the vote. It just has to be on the same meeting where you take action. So that would be another thing that you would need to add.
And given the timing, if the council wants to reconsider, we would want to do it tonight, because pushing this now to the 23rd of October would give us 8 days to write the grant. We're already down to 2 weeks.
Councilmember Baldwin.
So I just want to verify then with, I guess, Jennifer or Jason, if I'm hearing this correctly, that if for some reason this RCO grant was used to create that parking lot in this little blue square that I see here. Well, it's not really a square, but a shape of some sort. But if we were to do that, then that means, let's say 25 years down the road, we decide we wanted to make an extension to the park and we wanted that to also be a park. Let's even say, hypothetically, we were to gain land, that would allow us to maybe have the parking in another spot. You're telling me there's no flexibility That
There-
seems. a
There's
little
not, there's no flexibility. And without seeing the little blue square, I can't say,
Oh, you're not looking at the same.
no, we didn't, that email did not go to staff.
Oh.
So I don't know
It's a
what
lovely
little
little
blue
picture.
square is being shown.
Yeah.
Um,
It's in the shape of a T, really.
Oh, yeah, so the area that's bounded in blue right now is what is under what was the original 1970
Right.
grant.
Except for the little red square.
The little orange square and the little green square was what we did as a swap back in in 1986. The area south of the blue line is actually where we would be putting the boat trailer parking. So as we mentioned last week's council meeting, it is not currently restricted property. If you were to accept the grant, it would be required to stay in boat trailer parking. In order to remove it from being boat trailer parking, you would have to show where you're building an equal facility on the lake. So you would definitely have to have acquired property. You definitely would have to build a new parking lot as part of destroying the old parking lot that was RCO funded.
Councilmember Baldwin?
Well, I know for me, if for some reason there was flexibility then in, because what I foresee is that you're going to need boat trailer parking, regardless whether we have it there, we move it eventually, if there's some sort of extension or something like that from acquiring property. So to me, it's like if it's not solid in that spot, that we could essentially move it if for some reason we were going to extend that part of the park and move parking in a different area. I don't know that that's the worst thing. I just thought that if we got an RCO grant and with the perpetuity whole situation, that in that parking lot, it would just require us to always only have parking right there. I think that would be ridiculous.
You would have to, without having a corresponding property that you've purchased and is an equal size and equal shape, and
Yeah.
you get RCO to sign off that it's an equal swap. So it's a high bar. So I don't want to say there's zero flexibility, but it's not a unilateral flexibility.
Okay.
You would have to have RCO where you're showing how you're making that conversion and get them to sign off like they did with the 1986 land swap. So it's not that it's zero. I would characterize it, it's highly unlikely because of
Highly
this.
unlikely that they wouldn't.
Highly unlikely we would be able to because there's no surrounding property that we would be able to use without a huge expenditure. So between the cost and the swap and the reconstruction, it would be highly unlikely. So it's not that it's impossible and not completely off the table, it just does a high bar. So that's why we do just say it's basically in perpetuity. The location is consistent with the parks, trails, and open space plan the council just adopted, which is our 20-year plan that has gone through the public process. This is where we said that we wanted to do boat trailer parking. So that's kind of the sides to weigh.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
here's Jennifer has her hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to tag on to what Jason said. There is a possibility to amend the grant agreements in the future. We, of course, have not seen a grant agreement for this project yet because we haven't applied for the grant or been awarded the grant. So the vote the council took last week, and Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, is just to allow your staff to apply for the grant. And then assuming that we are awarded a grant, they will send us a grant agreement and that will come back to council to make a decision on. That's correct, Jason?
That's correct. And the only thing that we added is that if we get the full amount, when you start turning down full amount grants, the granting agencies don't like that as much. If it's a portionable grant, then there's a lot more. Well, we wanted $1 million, only gave us $250. We don't feel like it's a trade-off. So that would be my only caveat for that.
Councilmember Hubler.
So the area in the orange, that's not part of what you have as boat trailer?
No, we would be going kind of right up almost to the edge of that, maybe
Where the
just,
building and this, like that.
yeah, we might be just a hair over, but it's primarily, if you were to draw a box, it's between the blue box, the orange blocks, and the two roads.
Okay.
That's where the boat trailer parking would go. It's on property that is not currently restricted, as we mentioned at the last meeting.
Okay. And it would not include the senior center
No,
block? correct?
No.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Swatman.
Yeah, thanks, Councilmember Fullerton, for bringing this issue back to the table for discussion. My original contention was I just didn't simply want to tie the future councils and cities to, having to specific use or restrictions on a piece of land that maybe future councils want to do something with. I hear interesting ideas about boat trailer parking and boat trailer storage, and even interesting scenarios where we know that we can only charge so much for the boat launch, because that is covered under the RCO grant. There is, restrictions on that. However, if you're going to park your boat, maybe there's issues there if you're in city, out of city, or whatever you're doing with that. All those types of issues that, the council and the city can work with for flexibility on using the properties. It really came down to the fact that $1 million in a $5 million project, even though money is important, it just didn't, for a perpetuity type of a restriction, didn't make sense to me. So that's why I, originally opposed the idea. I'm more than happy to, pay a little extra for forever flexibility.
I'm going to go to Councilmember McClymans and then Councilmember Hubler.
So I would just like to point out that this resource is scarce and obviously valuable to the people of Bonney Lake, right? I mean, you're not going to find a resource like this. When I reread this agreement, I kind of chuckled because of, there's a lot of specific language that they understood and that was put in there because it's hard to find this property, right? And so anyway, so this is very valuable property, and selling the rights to the property for $1 million for a resource that's as scarce as parking, to me, that is right at the boundary of reasonableness. I mean, I voted against it because I said, no, it's not quite enough. If they were willing to pay the majority of the parking lot and we were paying part of it, that would probably make sense. But we're paying 3/4 of the cost and they're paying 1/4. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I mean, we're paying more than
Councilmember Hubler.
80%. If it's
I had a question, it keeps being brought up that the boat trailer or the boat launch is restricted, but I don't see that in the.
It's because it's in the original,
The boat launch was owned and purchased by the city before we got the RCO grant.
oh,
Okay,
so
so
it's not
that's
in the
not
RCO?
in the RCO, and
Oh.
it's not restricted?
That's why we've been able to restrict it to residents only for the last 2 years.
Oh,
The launch itself was not, when the city applied for the RCO grant, the city owned the launch facility and they owned a little piece of property next to the launch facility where the swimming pier is. The city then acquired 3 parcels on the other side of Bonney Lake Boulevard and then splitting West Taps Highway. Those were the parcels that are bounded in blue on your map. You'll see on your map the blue does not go out into the water, does not go out to the boat launch. So the boat launch has always been able to be in that nebulous area because we've owned it pre the grant. The grant came in 1970s. The Moriarty property was free of any restrictions until the council took the, and that's where Ballfield 5 is, until the council took the grant to build the ball field, and then the restriction was applied to that property. The challenge we have is, and we could talk about this, is where we currently have boat trailer parking is in the granting area. So that is a challenge when it comes to the operation of the launch. But the launch itself was not subject to the 1970s grant. It didn't get the same deed restricted recorded on it. Now, can RCO make an argument that it was in the spirit? I don't know, but it was not within the boundaries of the granted area.
Okay. Councilmember Fullerton.
Yeah, so that was my question last week, was because we were actually going to need to get an RCO grant in order to expand the boat launch in the future, to make the improvements that we need. It's more money than we can afford, and so we would need to have an RCO grant to improve that. So that's going to put restrictions on the boat launch in the future
If we were to take the
if
grant,
we take a grant for the boat launch.
if we were to do the relocation and use granting through RCO, the restrictions then would get added to those properties because they would come into the granting agreement.
Sorry, Councilmember Davis, did you still have something? Okay, Councilmember Baldwin?
Well, love the back and forth banter. Super appreciate it with this council. I would certainly say then, yeah, it does give me an uneasy feeling then as far as the restrictions are concerned. So I am okay if we wanted to, as a council, move forward to, I guess, not do the grant, but I don't know where everybody else's head is at.
And I do want to bring Sherry in because
Sure.
I asked her a question of when she did her ending fund and beginning fund balances that we talked about last week for the park CIP. Did she assume the $1 million grant or not? Because that will end up impacting what we do with our park CIP next year. And I don't know if you've had a chance to.
No, I don't have my, is this on?
Yep.
I don't have my computer with me to look at that right now, but my assumption would be that, yes, you probably let me know that. So yes, that's probably a part of that. So, I take a week off and there's all this discussion that I'm like, whoa. So from a budgetary perspective, my knee jerk on this, the park fund has always been pretty short. You gave some of the general fund money over the last couple years to the park fund to support it. So realize that shall you not take this grant if it's offered, that's likely going to require more of your general fund ending balance to be transferred to your parks fund again. So
Or elimination of the projects that we've shown on the current park CIP.
Right. Yeah, you can always eliminate other projects, but you'll likely have to support the park fund. There's not enough money coming in for all of the projects that have been allocated.
Deputy Mayor Swanman?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to hear that the RCO original one didn't cover the boat launch apparently area. So that's interesting, I think, because there's always been people talking about whether it was in it or out of it. So again, for me, it's more clear that if the boat launch is not in the RCO and you have your parking not in an RCO restriction, you have a whole system there that the citizens of Bonney Lake can use and do whatever they want with. I like that idea, I don't like it to be restricted if you restricted the parking piece, right?
Councilmember Hubler?
I'm kind of on the same page as thinking about this. I mean, I think back to all the years of different councils and all the restrictions and the grants that have come in and how restricted some of these properties are. So I don't know if my personal opinion is, should we restrict another chunk of city property or not?
Councilmember Fullerton?
Yeah, so I just pulled up the three red flags that I asked Jason for. So it's number one is the city will be required to maintain the property for boat trailer parking in perpetuity. Number two, the city would no longer be able to restrict boat trailer parking to city residents only. And number three, the city can charge non-residents a maximum of 200% or 2 times of what it charges residents. If there is a fee for a non-residence, the fee cannot be 0 for residents. So like if we don't want to charge for boat trailer parking, then we can't charge non-residents for boat trailer parking. So that means that if we're going to charge a non-resident for parking, then the residents cannot be 0. Essentially. So that would mean we have to charge residents, and that's if we agreed to this grant of $1 million. So those are the 3 red flags that Jason put in our thing. But I did not realize that the area that we're making for parking was not under the original. For some reason, it just didn't click in my head that it wasn't in the original grant. So that's why I brought this back, was because I was like, hey, this is open property. We actually have control over what we want to do in the future and what future councils want to do. So that was the reason I thought maybe we should just at least reconsider or think about it. And if we need to make a motion,
Yeah, not seeing anybody else with their hand up, that might be the next step, right? So we probably need a motion from somebody who,
That would
Not
be
oppose it
me,
last
because
week.
we voted yes. So I'll make a motion to reconsider the vote for the AB
Application. Yeah.
105 Resolution 24-105 for the RCO grant for $1 million for Allen York Park boat trailer parking.
Second.
so there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on that, or are we ready for a vote?
We're ready.
All right. All those in favor of reconsidering, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, there we go.
So I was just saying, I'd recommend then that we just reread the motion from last week, and then have the council just re-vote on that versus trying to come up with a new motion. So just reread the title from what was passed and then having a new vote on it. And if it fails, then it's done.
Do you have?
And if you want to know if that's included, give me 10 seconds. I'm logging into the chief's computer. But your
Okay.
current ending fund balance is only projected to be 1.2 million at the end of 26. So that would take everything you have. You would have nothing left in the parks, so you know. But I'm logging into the chief's computer if you want that.
Okay, Councilmember Davis.
I'll share you some time here.
Yeah.
So, Jason, so you were talking about if we do not go for the grant, that's probably going, and if it's in the budget, we might have to eliminate some projects. I know you probably you weren't prepared for this, but do you know what projects that might include?
Well, I think it's going to depend on what Sherry's response is when she looks into the budget, because if the ending fund balance is $1.2 million, basically everything that we have on the project list could be done. But at the end of 2026, you would have $200,000 left. So going into 2027, 2028, unless there's additional funding that has come in, additional revenue sources, then, or park impact fees come in higher than projected, or REIT comes in higher than projected, the ability to do projects in 27 and 28 would be much lower.
Councilmember Rock.
So much of what we're talking about is based off of potentially getting $1 million. We don't know if we're actually going to get $1 million, and that's what was budgeted for. So what if they come back and say that we get 250? Is this a conversation that we want to revisit when we know an exact number and say, is this number worth it? Is this number not worth it? I don't know what it costs for staff as far as their time to file that grant, or because it's already so close to the timeline, if they've already begun that process and we've already paid out payroll for them starting that process. But maybe, is there a rough figure of this is what it costs for us to file this grant? And we can weigh our cost of, is it worth it to pay to file it to see what we would potentially get? So we can have a more narrowed down conversation at least.
If you can have 5 more minutes of discussion, I have to run upstairs because it goes over your profile. And Chuck just told me that'd take 40 minutes.
I did pull up the page number, page 75 of the last packet for the wording.
Yeah, I would say it takes about 40 to 50 hours of staff time. We are going to pull in the consultant to help with that as well. So there would be some staff consultant cost. I think it would be important if the council, as a policy matter, even if we got $1 million, is opposed to it, that would be good for us to know, because we wouldn't apply for the grant even if $1 million is not enough. If $1 million is enough for the council, then we would continue. I think that's our concern, is if we go get $1 million grant and come back and have put all the work in it, and then the council at that point decides we don't want to accept a full grant from RCO, that becomes problematic. But if they came back with a proportionate one, that becomes a different, I think, analysis. But I would ask the council if is $1 million enough? And if $1 million is not enough, then we won't chase the grant.
It sounds like it's not from what everybody's been saying in proportion to the full amount, I guess, of the cost, right? And I think especially if we get anything under that, it's a definite no-go. If $1 million, if we're already saying $1 million is too much for perpetuity. I don't know.
And I think it's something the council should consider when they look at how they're going to fund their park system, because our primary funding source for grants for parks is RCO. And this is a standard thing that they put on all of their RCO grants. So if we went out for grants for Midtown Park, and typically $1 million is about the most you can get, we would have to encumber Midtown Park the same way that Allen York Park is encumbered. So that would be something to consider as you look forward to your financial strategies. If you're just going to go forego RCO granting, that will determine other things that you'd have to do.
Deputy Mayor Swatman.
Thank you. Yeah, again, for me, it's the $1 million kind of threshold, because if it was a $2.5 million grant for a $5 million project, it might be a different conversation. But again, the boat launch and the parking associated with that activity over there is a very sensitive kind of regional issue for a lot of the lake going users and a lot of the public, and how it's used and who gets to use it, and all the issues that are around that. So it's just such an operational issue that, to me, restricting how future councils, this council even wants to operate over there, is not worth $1 million. I think that, as staff points out, that it's going to be a different conversation when we go for different areas that are designated as park. The Central Park, or the WSU piece, if there's $1 million or something, I probably have a different conversation, because it's once people say that's region is going to be a park, it's a park. This is the thing that really integrates this boat launch activity, is when our police chief or the mayor is saying, hey, all of these folks coming from Sumner are pulling these gigantic boats up here, and they expect to have a parking place, and it's not really like the greatest thing for our residents, and we paid 75% of that cost. It's like kind of like so I'm still on the and I think another comment was, be careful about the granting agencies. They're very interconnected, right? So I can probably talk longer than Sherry came back. They are, there's a lot of interconnectivity between people in the granting agency scenario. They don't like to see you really apply for grants and then not take them if they bother to give them to you. It's not too terribly bad, because they go down the list a little ways, but it's a little you don't want to apply for something you don't intend on saying, yeah, that's great, thank you very much, right?
Right.
Even if they do give you half, but
Right.
Thank you.
And then Councilmember Fullerton.
Actually, Deputy Mayor Swatman just basically said everything that was in my head, so I'm good.
Good job.
Perfect.
Councilmember Hubler.
I have a question for Jason.
Oh, yes, and I have answers for you on some.
Okay. Did I hear you correctly, or did I not hear this correctly? You said the max that the RCO grant ever gives is $1 million?
Typically, that's typically what you're granting. Yeah, I have not seen more than typically that. I'm not saying there's not a weird exception, but that's been kind of my experience.
They haven't adjusted for inflation.
And then Sherry did not include the grant revenue. So if this council were to accept the grant and we got it, we would be $2.2 million in the Indian fund balance. If the council doesn't go forward with the grant, then it would still be $1.2 million. If the council does not move forward with the grant, one thing I would ask the council to have a conversation with CDC, because if the intent of not going for the grant is that it wants to be restricted to residents only, the facility does not need to be as large.
Really?
Right. So the facility we designed initially was for 27 boat trailer parkings, and then we were told to increase it because we wanted to open it up more broadly. So we doubled the size and went to 54. That created a lot of grading challenges because the other part of it had to dip. If we're just wanting to do this as kind of a residents only thing, there's a possibility to scale back the size. I don't know how much that scales back the cost. That would be one thing to consider. And the other thing to consider is, regardless of the vote on accepting the grant, we have to move the boat trailer parking from its current location for a multitude of reasons.
Councilmember Fullerton.
Well, I bypassed mine, so we could, Councilmember Hubler's had hers up for a minute, mine, so I'll.
Oh, sorry.
It's not
gonna
like I'm
yield-
gonna stop with the questions right
Yeah.
now. I just, I sit here and I think about that a restriction is worth $1 million. To me, it's not. Restricting what we can do or what future councils can do. If we want to keep it to the same size that the staff have come up with at 54 whatever spaces, we could still keep it at that, not have any restrictions on it. We can choose, or future councils can choose what they want to do financially with it, rather than being restricted that you can only do this and you can only do that. And I'm on that same page with all parks, actually. Now that I know that that's all you can get for a park is about $1 million. That's just, to restrict something doesn't feel right when other people could use it for something different.
Councilmember Fullerton.
Back to me. Yeah, so after hearing about the, possibly minimizing, I don't think that we should do that, because it's always been open to public and everybody. And we have had so many issues with the boat trailer parking being smaller, when we had almost 100 available, when we had the Moriarty property available for people to park as over parking. So I think we should keep it at the size, If it's going to make a huge difference, I could see maybe 10 spots going away, but I don't think that would make it small enough to make the price go down too much more. I feel like we need to, it's just the option of being able to charge more for non-residents if we want to as well. So there's options for kind of paying for it over the long term by being able to charge for parking. And we're going to have the gates that are going to be monitored to the boat trailer parking as well, I believe, so that, and we could also do a yearly permit for residents, which would not be restricted to forcing us to offer boat trailer parking permits for non-residents, but we can still offer them to residents, which I think it would be important, so they can get at a lesser rate, or we can combine boat launch and boat trailer parking if we want to, which we would not be able to do if we got the grant. So, but I don't think we need to make it smaller.
It was
We're
just
gonna
something.
always, you build it and they will come.
Yeah, it was just
So,
something I wanted
yeah.
to throw out to council consideration, because right now we have about 26. And both Chief and I noticed over the summer and talking with our staff that if it's just restricted to city residents, that was more than enough. We weren't having those problems. It's when it's open to the general public that you need more spots. So I just wanted to throw that out as a value, an engineering value conversation the council could have. If they're going to pass on the grant, we could bring those cost differentials back to council.
Okay.
Councilmember Davis.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for bringing this back up in the discussion, because it has opened my eyes to a few things, with understanding that the boat trailer part, or the boat launch itself, is not under the RCO, is a big deal, because that changes a lot about what we can do. And I think as we had this discussion with the paid parking spots, and we were limited on what we could do there to help adjust for residents, this would allow us, like you're saying, Councilmember Fullerton, to be able to support the residents a little more to use that boat trailer parking and the boat launch, because ultimately they are the ones that are paying for this if we do not use the grant money. So we should be able to charge a different rate for city residents and non-city residents. And so I like the fact that this would give us that flexibility and not restrict us in any way. So that has definitely swayed my decision on whether we should be going for this grant or not.
Councilmember Baldwin.
I think we should keep the amount of parking spots. However, I am curious, do you know what the cost difference is between, I don't remember what it was, from the 20-something to the 50-something? Because you're saying there's grading and things like that. So.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, is it significant, or is it?
Well, I would say if you can do it on the already flat surface versus having to build up the area to the south, either through mass grading or retaining walls, there is a cost savings for not having to do that work. I don't know what that delta looks like. I just know that if we did that, when we had the two layouts that we showed to the CDC, it would take it down to probably 26 to 27 stalls, which is what we currently have.
Yeah, I think it does matter though, what would be, if you're proposing that would be a way that we could save money. I guess I would just wonder how much money would we actually save? What's the cost benefit analysis versus, the more parking or whatever.
Unless we could do it in 2 phases, do the flat side first and then, allow for parking and then later on expand the parking lot.
I can reach out to the consultant. I will say if council, the decision is to turn down, not proceed with the grant, our timeline is a little bit longer, and I can have those conversations and bring that back for CDC discussion and see if we can two-phase it.
Okay.
Okay, so we did a vote, but you said we should do
We have
another
to
vote.
suspend our rules, right?
Yeah, I think you have to
Suspend our voting rules.
say to your,
Are you guys wanting to revote on it tonight?
Yes.
Okay. So what we need to do is we need to open it for public comments either before or after the vote. That's the first thing. And then I have to read the motion out so that you know what you're voting on and then vote for it.
And we don't have to suspend the rules or whatever? Do we have to make a motion to?
No, because we vote
No,
on-
because
we vote on stuff.
we're actually following the rules
Okay.
at that point.
So at this point, why don't we have you read what it is? We'll open it for a public comment, and then we'll do a vote.
This is the motion on the floor for the vote is for AB 24-105, Resolution R 24-105 for reconsideration. The council motion would be to authorize the mayor to sign the RCO applicant resolution form incorporating the terms of the RCO applicant resolution form and authorizing staff to submit a grant application to the Recreation and Conservation Office Boating Facilities Program.
Thank you. And we'll open this for public comment. Is there any public comment on this issue? Not seeing any.
We will need a first and second.
Okay. We need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
There's a first and a second. Okay. And with nobody commenting, we can go ahead and take it to a vote. Yes? Okay. All right, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Still on council open discussion. Any other discussion? Thank you, Councilmember Fullerton.
I'm actually confused what we just voted on.
We voted down the going for the grant.
Okay, all right. I was thinking it was to reconsider
Yep.
No.
the original.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
so
did
Read
that,
the
so you're
resolution
good.
from last
I'm a
week.
nay. Okay, I'm a nay then.
Yep, you were.
Okay.
It worked out, I think, the way you wanted it to. Okay.
Sadie, do you just?
Open discussion? Was there anybody? Okay. Seeing no other discussion, we'll move on to our decision cards. I'll hand the floor over to Interim Public Services Director, Mr. Sullivan.
I think I'm going to give a slight deferral to the CFO, Sherry, for a few seconds.
So just kind of want to talk real quick about the decision card process. You have a couple decision cards ahead of you tonight, but I want to remind you to refer back to, I think it's page 8 in your packet. That will show you what your ending fund balance is going to be at the end of 2026. So when you look at the decision cards, if it's, I'm going to make this up right now because I'm not looking at them. If it's $400,000 coming out of the water, well, right now you can see that you have, it's going to end at a little over 10 million. It looks like 10.9. It's kind of small on my screen. Yeah, 10.9. So you would reduce your ending fund balance by whatever amount you guys give me a head nod to. I don't need approvals from everyone. Just, do you want this in the budget? Yay or nay? And then your final budget, these decision cards that you say, yes, I like this, and yes, we want this forward, it'll come back to you in the final budget. These are not currently included in your budget, And I believe Jason will talk about each of them to kind of give you some more information on each of what they're asking for. Does that make sense?
I think so. Go ahead.
All right, so, and just to add on that, none of the decision cards that are presented to the city council tonight are part of the general fund. So they would not impact the general fund's ending balance nor the deficit that we have been talking about with it related to the general fund. These are all out of dedicated revenue sources outside of the general fund.
Can I say something really quick too?
Councilmember Baldwin.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly too, decision cards are things that are kind of outside. Right, so it's outside of the things that we've already approved. These are all additional things. So that's something really to consider.
Yes.
These are all just additional things to like add to spending.
Yes.
Yeah, is what it
Correct.
is. Yeah.
Councilmember McClymans.
How do these affect the SDC calculation? Or would they have affected the SDC calculation?
We do not, they will not affect the current SDC calculation because that's already set.
Well, how would they? They were not part of the SDC.
Right, and what we've looked at is, do we have enough, this is what we talked about last week. Remember, we talked about what the rate study said we should spend and what the rate studies showing that we're actually spending for water, sewer, and storm. And for water, we're actually about $1 million below what rate study would assume that we were spending. So we have the cash flow to be able to take on those projects. The sewer, there is sufficient money in the ending fund balance to cover the overage from that rate study expenditure, and that was mainly due to the Sumner wastewater treatment plant. So we have the cash flow, that's what Sherry and I have been working with, to support the spending within the current framework.
Are you talking about the projects from last week? Or the new ones?
The new ones.
Yeah, so did this come on?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
So the projects from last week were included in your budget. These ones are currently not in your budget, so it will take away from how much money you have as your ending fund
Yeah.
balance
Mhm.
on page 8.
Okay. And they were not part of the SDC input for
Correct.
the calculation.
Correct.
Councilmember Hubler.
Just to clarify and make sure I understand what you had just said. So these would be the ending fund balance for like water fund, sewer fund, correct?
So currently you're going to be looking at, I don't know what page this is on your packet. Page 11 is the list of decision cards you're going to be hearing tonight. The first fund, and I apologize, I didn't write down all the funds here. The first fund is Fund 320. There's 2 decision cards there. The next fund will be the water fund, which is 401. And the next fund is your sewer fund, which is Fund 402. If you approve any of those, say you approve, the only thing you approve is the 19,500 in the water fund, that will reduce your ending fund balance on page 8 for the water fund by that 19,000.
Okay.
And the budget I would bring back would reflect that.
Which is,
Okay.
which is all at the bottom of that page 8.
Correct.
That's where you look at that. Yeah, that's a lot to look at. So,
And I'm going to try to walk you through it as we do it.
well, I think if you just tell us where we're looking is,
Yep.
you know, you guys are kind of going like, you're saying a lot of words and there's a lot on this. And, you know, luckily I've seen it before, but I think, yeah, you want to tell people kind of where it's at.
Yep.
Like even the numbers you were just saying, you know, 320, 302, it's
Yes.
like, that's at the top of
Correct.
page 8. That's what she's referencing.
Yep, the fund is at the top.
Yeah.
The
fund
ending
number.
fund balance
Yeah.
is at the bottom. Every fund has enough money to support these should you decide that they're worthy projects.
Thank you.
Well, I will walk through this. Starting on page 8, you're looking for the number 320, which is in the top, in the top bar. You'll see the numbers. They're in sequential order. So you're almost to the edge of the page where it says 320. Below that, it says general fund, governmental CIP. You'll see the projected beginning balance for 2025 of a little over $2 million. The revenue and projects that are already approved in the other revenue sources means we'll bring in a little bit over $2 million in revenue into the general governmental CIP. Our proposed expenditure that's already in the budget is $1.3 million, leaving us with an ending fund balance of $2.7 million without these projects. We're proposing to add 2 new projects. that would reduce our ending fund balance to just below. It would reduce our ending fund balance to about $2.6 million and some change. The total project costs are $76,000. The first project is adding keycard access to both the Public Services Building and to the Justice and Municipal Center. Specifically, we'll install keycard access systems for the AV closet, emergency management closet, and records room at the Public Service Center, and the stairwell door on the first floor here at the Justice and Municipal Center, as well as the elevator. The reason this project was added is the installation of the keycard access addresses significant security gaps, especially for critical areas like our AV closet and our emergency management closet. It also provides protection during public events. The keycard system at the Justice and Municipal Center ensures that during public meetings like tonight, access to the non-public floors is restricted. Currently, someone can walk into the building and go to any floor in this building right now because there's no restrictions for the second and third floor, which minimizes security concerns and enhances the safety of employees and visitors. And long-term, key cards are more efficient than traditional locks as it eliminates the need for rekeying. In the case of lost or stolen keys, it's easier for management to basically chuck with a couple keystrokes can remove our access or add our access to the building. It also provides us with emergency operations here if we need to lock down the second and third floor during a issue in the courtroom during the day. It will take some time, but it will allow us that opportunity. The total cost for this project is $46,000. And we're just looking for head nods or I can answer questions.
Councilmember Baldwin.
I'm just talking just to the council right now, but so that would equate to each door being about 15,000, or each key card entry door being $15,333 and some change. After, when I was reading through this, I wasn't super excited. I feel like there has to be other ways. I know even just looking at some of this where it was saying it would save money, from being able to, do the cards and things like that. But even then, I mean, this is in the thousands and thousands for one door. And so I'm not real comfortable with that. I don't know if to me, it seems like there would be an alternative way to be able to secure spaces without it being that much. Just a thought. That's my thought.
How is it 46,000?
So the elevator is a large portion of that. In order to do the elevator, that's probably close to 20,000 just for the elevator. It's primarily because the way, if you have a access panel inside the elevator, you also have to build an access track. So it's not just a fixed panel just sitting outside a door. That panel has to travel with the elevator, and there has to be cabling, and it has to be done by Tyson Crump, who is the elevator. So there's added costs to make the elevator work, as well as programming to allow anyone to go down, because we can't kidnap someone and put someone upstairs and not allow them down after hours. We can't restrict them that way. So there's a fair bit of programming as well to make the elevator function with this access control. So that's why the elevator is a large portion of this. The other doors are somewhere around $6,000 to $7,000 per.
Can't use the key cards we already have.
There is no key. That's what we're adding to those other doors. Those other doors do not have the key card access.
Got it.
Yeah, they're lacking that system.
Deputy Mayor Swatman.
Yeah, I can understand the elevator being quite expensive. Not necessarily that I kind of agree with it, but I understand it's very expensive to do. I'm trying to think, this is kind of a technical discussion, I would suspect, because we go up to the second floor right now and we're walking around up there. Which offices can we walk into, right? There's open doors into offices kind of thing. I don't know if there's you can get into the bathrooms. I can't even get
into the public safety area. Unless
it's not so much the open areas. It's a concern for staff, especially as we close out the building. Yeah. If we have people hiding in bathrooms, which we have had to call the police for before, that we have unintended people after hours that we can't secure access areas. And the idea was if we have an access at the stairwell on the first floor and the access control in the elevator, that eliminates people getting up to the second and third floors. So we don't have to necessarily have the police come and sweep those in the middle of the night to make sure there's nobody there.
Right.
Which we currently, the police are kind enough to come and do.
It's the same situation on the third floor, right? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Because you, again, you get off the elevator, you can't go anywhere because all the doors are closed. So you're just talking about a few bathrooms up there that are the problem, and the problem exists today.
And the
regardless of
patio.
what-
And
what type it is.
the patio and the HVA system up there, because there's a patio that's just a simple turn lock. And if you go out there, you can actually hide there or into where the HVAC units are.
Yeah.
Because they're behind another screened wall that you just can open the door up and walk into.
Yep.
Yeah, and the third floor is not secure at all because there's no walls all the way up to the ceiling. You can,
Okay, yeah.
and I know you can shimmy over them because I had to do it once.
So the elevator's fun, right? What I don't really understand is the use or the lack thereof of some of the other things when you're talking about the closets and different things that you guys have done with your card readers, right? Card readers in offices. Because you really, like, are you telling me that an AV closet is going to cost like $6,000 to put a card reader on? Even if that was even a remotely good idea, but you're like, that's like, really?
That's the quote we received from the
So
contractor.
whoever is quoting us that is like crazy as bats out of like whatever.
I will defer to Chuck.
But and the reason, it's questionable anyways, right? Because and I think that you're familiar. Obviously, we've invested a lot of money in our CyberLock system that we have over Public Works that has, a lot of the functionality that you're probably looking for, right? So you're a lot better off to put that in a closet. If you're not doing a badge and in outdoor is one thing, but a closet or something like that, or a supply room like you have a badge on, you really, your CyberLock is really a much better solution because even if you put a badge on it, you still have a key on the thing anyways, right?
The challenge with the CyberLock is that would give access to our water and sewer system.
No, it doesn't. You know that. I'm sorry. Because you guys are just talking about stuff you don't know about, right? That's really, really the only reason I hate these discussions because I do this, This is what I do for a living. And that's things specifically programmed for that you can allow somebody with a key to get into a certain place at a certain time it's the perfect for a lock system. Some card readers are a little bit of a different story because if you're walking through a door all the time, that's the way you get through it. Otherwise you have to key that you're doing it. But, you guys, in my opinion, need to relook at this because this $46,000 is way over the top, The elevator thing makes pretty good sense. The way you're using some of the stuff you have, like with these card readers, is like crazy. I'll shut up now.
Councilmember Hugh.
Staff wouldn't disagree with the concept of cyber keys for those two particular closets. The issue is how many cyber keys do we purchase for all the people that may need access to the EOC closet? Because most of those people are not water staff that have cyber keys. Now, is there a cost benefit that we can look at? Absolutely. Cyber keys cost a certain amount.
Chuck,
Is it going to
they
be
don't-
7,000? No, probably
This is
not.
a discussion I didn't want to have. They don't cost anything. You guys bought a cyber vault.
We have to give the physical cyber key to staff who
don't.
need access to
No, you don't. And you know that, right? You guys bought a $20,000 cyber vault so you could have the person walk up there with a badge and swipe it and get the key anytime they want.
I'm not aware we have anything like that. We have cyber keys that go to locks, but we don't have a cyber vault that you can get a.
Yeah, you do. That's the way that otherwise you'd have to issue cyber keys to everybody.
And that's what Public Works Water Department has done. Every person needs to get to the water sites have their own unique cyber key.
I know. They have them.
Cyber keys, individual ones.
Right.
Councilmember Hubler.
My thought is maybe just who has access truly to the emergency management closet and the AV closet and record storage room? Like who actually has access to those? Are those behind other lock doors?
That's the challenge we're trying to fix. When it comes to the emergency management closet, there's only one or two people that actually have the key. And depending on who gets here first to set up the EOC, may not have that hard key. So for example, I don't have a hard key to that closet. So if I get here before Regine or somebody else who has a key, I have to sit and wait because we don't have hard keys. The city has moved away from a policy of having hard keys handed to staff because of the rekeying issue or when someone leaves. So the problem we're trying to solve with the EOC closet is expanding the number of people who have access to it that are part of the Emergency Management Operations Center. So when there's an emergency, we can come in and unlock that door and get the stuff out versus waiting for the one or two people that have hard keys. I think Chuck has a hard key. Nope, Chuck doesn't have one. I don't, Sherry has a hard key. I think the only one that has a hard key is Regine and maybe John. So we would have to wait for Regine or John to show up in order to open up the closet and start setting up the EOC. So we're trying to turn that on its head. So with a key card access, anybody who's on the EOC staff will be able to open that door. So it's the reverse issue in that case.
Yeah, follow up.
Sorry, I have a follow-up then. Can't we just have those keys behind locked doors in the facility somewhere where staff know where to get it, have, even if it's a coded, like in real estate, we have to have special key boxes that you gain access to, keys for houses, and those are very secure. Like even something like that just could be locked up, that would cost us, maybe $100 or $200 or something like that, maybe. That would be my thought. And then just maybe the elevator and the downstairs hallway door, because those would be the two access points to go upstairs, right?
Yes.
So then maybe that would all be that we would need.
Councilmember Fullerton.
Forgot what I was going to say. Yep, I forgot. Sorry.
All right. Is this something we want to scale back, or we want to look for a head nod or yes or no, basically for that?
So I'm looking for, I guess, head nod if you want to do a scaled back version, like Councilmember Hubler just suggested. I can certainly modify that and move that forward. Is this a head nod? Is that hands raised? Or are these questions?
My question was.
Oh, she remembered a question.
Okay.
Yeah, in an emergency, if we're like when we had the fires and everything and we literally had no power, I don't think that the key cards are going to work unless we have a generator here that's working. I don't know do we have a generator here so that people could, otherwise I think a hard key would be better, and having, a push button lock box to be able to access the key to actually have a hard key, because in an emergency like the fires, could we really access that EOC if we needed to?
So the EOC, the first three doors that he talked about are at the Public Services Building.
Okay.
The other two doors are down here. The elevator and the door down here
Yeah.
are this building.
And we're fully generated out at our building.
Right. So if that is acceptable and that's what you guys are saying, yeah, that's what we prefer, that's absolutely what I will put in the budget. Am I seeing
Well, I think we
yeses?
have a couple more questions.
No, I think that's a yes, right? You're
No,
a
I have
yes?
a question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so Councilmember Climans, and then did you have a question?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Mhm.
What is the amount that we're willing to spend on securing doors?
So
Do we
from
have
my
that in our
understanding, it
head?
would be about $26,000-ish
I'd say
that
probably 30.
no more than 30 for, it sounds like it's about 20 for the elevator and about 6 for the door down here. So under the modified version, it'd be around $27,000 included in the budget. The rest would be dumped and come back with an alternative solution at another time.
Oh, yeah, so put another way, I'm trying to think of what I think is willing to spend on securing certain facilities, because it sounds like we've secured a lot of facilities already, especially at the new Public Works building, and some here. And I think there's a whole gamut of security container options that are out there. A cipher lock on a door, a key box on a door, spin dials. Boy, wouldn't I love to share
Lot
that?
cheaper than $7,000
Yeah,
for a closet, right?
Yeah, spin dials like really cheap. I'd love to share that pain with you guys.
Nice. Councilor Baldwin.
So I guess for this decision card, we don't have the option of just saying no.
You do.
You do have.
You absolutely do. So when I'm saying I'm looking for head nods, if nobody nods their head yes, then I'm not going to include this in the budget. That is the message you send.
Well, you guys-
And that's why I said, does the council want to say, oh, let's spend $5,000?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we have to see what it
Is there a budget amount that we're willing to approve for securing doors in these facilities? I think, I would think $5,000 is probably reasonable.
Well, the elevator's going to cost you more than that, right?
But do we have to really secure the elevator or secure the bathrooms?
Well, they make a good case for the elevator in my mind.
Do they?
I don't
Yeah, I
know.
see a head nod for the elevator.
Yeah,
So
I'm getting head nods.
From my staff's perspective, I appreciate Councilmember Huber's suggestion because if you secure this building, they're going to feel a lot more safe. Right now, my staff does not feel safe coming in, when it's dark out, 7 o'clock in the morning. Most of the staff is here, some are earlier. They don't feel safe. And we don't have the funds to pay somebody to come and do a sweep every night to make sure that everybody has exited the building. And so at a department head level, we chatted about this. What can we do to make this building as secure as possible, knowing that when people leave, it's secure and they can come back feeling like there's not somebody hiding that, is talking to themselves and hitting people, right? So this was kind of the suggestion that came up. The mayor was part of that discussion. I think it's a great solution to help the staff feel safer. And it's not just my staff. I mean, there's a lot of people in the building that just don't feel safe anymore with the activity that's been outside.
in the bathrooms, we can't lock because they're public restrooms.
Yep.
So we can't put the key card access on them or cipher locks or cyber keys because they are general public restrooms.
Councilmember Fullerton.
Yeah, I would like to make a statement because I actually had a phone call with Sadie one morning, and I was listening to some very colorful language and some fighting and arguing, and I was like, what in the heck is going on over there? It was, I don't remember if it was a Friday morning or a Thursday morning, but there was somebody fighting and picking a fight with one of our newer police officers. They actually had to call a police officer to get this guy out of the building, and he was causing quite the ruckus. So I'm kind of along the lines of, I like the thought of staff because being able to secure the building. And I think that Fridays, the building is closed down now for the most part, but we can't do that every single day as a public building. So we need to allow the public access, but it would be nice to be able to secure the building and have safety for the staff is kind of where my brain's going. If we could maybe do it cheaper, I don't know, but I'm, since Sherry's saying that we have the ability to pay for this, it's not in the budget now, but it's not going to come out of ending fund balances where it's going to cause our budget to go cattywampus. I'm kind of leaning more towards safety.
On the same vein of safety, I know we all hate to think about this, but this would also allow, if we find out there's an active shooter situation, which is becoming more prevalent these days, downstairs, one phone call to Chuck and he can lock it down so that the upstairs is not affected, So it just adds another layer that we don't like to think about.
Councilmember McClymans.
Yeah, so I need some clarity. You're proposing to put key card access on the elevator and the doors, but not during public hours.
Correct.
And then after hours, they would be activated. So what happens before you activate it? Are you going to have to sweep the area before you activate the key cards?
Well, I think one of the concerns that was addressed was like on nights tonight, like tonight, we're all here in this meeting space. The doors to the building are completely wide open. And it doesn't take, anybody can walk in here now and go up to the first or second floor. So it's nights like tonight where we've opened up the first floor to the general public. They also have access to every floor of this building. The concern is someone coming in during this time of night and accessing the upper floors unbeknownst to us because they're available. And then the second one, as Sherry talked about, is if we did have an actor suitor situation in the courtroom, we can quickly change those access parameters with Chuck to, it won't be instantaneous, but be able to lock down the building for the second and third floor so we can contain the first floor and limit those situations.
And to answer your question, Councilmember Climents, on the second floor, we leave the bathroom doors open so anybody can see the lights turn on when somebody goes in there. So if there was somebody in there when we're all leaving, I think somebody would say something to another person like, hey, there's somebody still in the bathroom and we're all leaving. The bathrooms on the second floor, we leave open. So we know if there's somebody in there.
Councilmember Baldwin.
I'm all for securing areas, and I do think that you can secure access to the upstairs and use a lockdown systems that use some sort of remote lock system, where you're being able to lock it from somewhere else without spending $46,000.
Well,
it's $46,000 we're talking about here, guys. You can secure access to a building without spending that much.
The elevator and the door over here would be about 27 or 28. If
you're telling me that there isn't a way to stop people from being able to access the upstairs elevator by just shutting the elevator down when we're after hours like this. The logic is not adding
to the
up.
public, you cannot restrict access going down. So in the event of a fire, you can't shut down the elevator like tonight because we're open to the public and there may be someone upstairs. Fire code says if you're open to the public, you cannot have the elevator turned off. The elevator must be able to go down in the event of a fire, no matter whether the building is open or closed.
I thought elevator.
But it sounds like then no matter what, you have to do a sweep.
I guess. Oh, they can only go.
It's what
if there's
Councilmember McClinemans was saying. If you have to allow public access.
No, I guess what Chuck is saying is there's a staff member in the building tonight that's up on the second or third floor. We can't turn off power to the elevator because they still have to be able to access that elevator to come down. What the security card access that we're proposing allows the elevator to come up and down. It's just in order to get on the elevator on the first floor, you would have to badge in. So after hours,
Like a hotel.
Correct. So after hours, the only people that could go up are people who have badged in. Exactly. I think a hotel is the perfect
Then what are you
example.
And
doing
the
with
chief
the
said
stair
that he would
access?
sweep before council.
That's the other door we're talking about.
Yeah, the stairwell.
The stairwell that we all come down from the second floor by the bathrooms. Those are the only two secure points that we need to have. Every other door is key card access. So
And that's 3.
it's the elevator and one door.
Stairwell?
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Okay, but
Is talking about the other building.
I understand the key card entry even into the what is that thing called? The elevator.
Mhm.
But you're also then telling me that we can't just do basic secure access to that bottom door so it just locks at night?
There is no locking mechanism on that door.
So we put a locking mechanism on the door that doesn't cost thousands of dollars. I understand the elevator, but
That is also a fire exit.
Yeah, unfortunately, right.
So yeah, we have to have a certain amount of, so that is one of the, you have to have 2 ways to egress out stairwells, which is why we have 2. So in order to come down, you have to be able, you can't lock and restrict access coming out of the stairwell here. In the event of a fire, it is an emergency.
So
way.
if you were to put a padlock on that, so I
this
get
is too much.
I guess this is what I'm saying.
Which one?
If you put a padlock door, if you put a lock on that door, on the inside of that door, so that you had to have a key on the outside, when someone is running down in a fire, they would have to undo that deadbolt. That you can't do because it's a fire violation, so it has to have a crash bar on it. The thing with the key card access, it allows for the crash bars to still work, but you can still restrict access from people coming in the door. That's why these things aren't as easy as just putting at least those two. I agree with the council on the doors for the public safety building. We're just trying not to use keys and use the same system. And if the council doesn't want to move for that, we can find workarounds that are cheap and make it work. Those two situations, because they're the fire access, the only way you're really going to be able to control access in and still provide fire access out is through the key card system, because they're the ones that still allow the crash bar and access, but still restrict the incoming access from the first floor.
Councilmember Hubler.
My thought would be if our schools have crash bars and they have the ability to lock but still use the crash bars from inside or outside, couldn't we do something like that?
I think they're permanently locked. Those are permanently locked.
Well, you're right. But you can, there's a little key that opens that little crash bar and holds it open so that those can be opened and closed.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
I'm sure they can figure it out. You know, of note, you'll be able to do that, you know, because I've heard people talk about having to contact Chuck, but they wouldn't have to once they, you know, for safety aspects, they'll be able to lock the building down very quickly because there's a bunch of different electronic methods, and Chuck probably is thinking, yeah, I'm going to have a panic button, you know, because there's several ways of doing that. So it does provide an increased public safety in respect to the elevator and that doorway that they're talking about there. Makes a lot of sense how they, you know, how they do that and how much they have to spend to do it. It's kind of their thing, but yeah, that's, you know, two. That
would be the thing that we would lose with any sort of manual lock, is for Chuck to be able to remotely shut down those doors in the case of an active shooter situation in the court.
Anybody could. I'm confident that he's going to have a little red button on, you know, Sherry's desk, and she's going to.
So someone can remotely do it versus having to go down and physically do it.
Exactly.
So I'm hearing the public safety doors are a no. Public services doors are definitely a no. How are we feeling on the elevator and the one stairwell door here? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay.
Yeah.
3.
Okay.
So I don't have a majority to put it in the budget.
Oh, yeah, you do. Didn't you get one? I got how many did
Are
you
you
get? I'm
are you
sorry.
4?
I
had
here.
3.
The public.
Yeah, here.
Just in this building.
This building, yeah. You know.
Okay.
It'd be really great if you guys come back with a solution that, you know, was cheaper, but that's okay.
The chief wanted to comment real quick.
That's then.
Right.
One, I'm really uncomfortable talking about security of our buildings and open public meetings.
There you go, right? Yeah, exactly.
Right here. I'm Councilmember Baldwin. I think to your point about being able to physically lock doors and things, the issue, we looked at that and I kind of identified earlier is we don't have like a single staff person that's responsible for that, right? There's not like a staff person. At the end of the day, Chuck now goes through and locks all those doors. We talked about, do you have a CSO or a security person? For us, for the police department to come support that time of day is our busiest time of day for calls for service. So it winds up being, it just kind of falls through the cracks. There's not that person with the key to go through and lock all the crash doors to make the building secure. So that was kind of why we went away from that.
Well, even if they do remote lock, though, you'd still have to go through and do a sweep. If you really think about it, if you remote lock, you still have to do a sweep. I can remote lock my house, but if there's people up in there and I lock it, they're in there.
Security's fun. It's challenging.
So thumbs up for the stairwell here and the elevator. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I got 4. I will be including just that part in the budget. Jason, next item.
Next item. And I do want to note that the money that is in the CIP can only be used for governmental CIP projects. So we can't take that money and go do something else, right? It just, if you don't spend it, it just.
Or any of these funds. So
Or any of
these
these
funds,
funds, it
this
just
money
sits there.
is dedicated to that fund specifically, correct? So if they have money questions, I can certainly ask those. Outside of that, can
Yep.
you talk about the demo of the green garage?
Yeah, so the next one is the demolition of what we call the old green garage, commonly known as it's the garage across the street here, the green building. It was left over from when we purchased that property. For a while, it was used for the facilities group, which are now out at our facilities. We have had homeless people camping behind it. It's no longer needed. It does create a maintenance burden because we have to pay for the power. We have to keep it insulated. We've had to do cleanups because we have homeless people that have camped behind it. Also, removing the garage is crucial to advancing the downtown park plan, which was part of the plan that was recently adopted by the council. And it's about $30,000 to do that work.
Councilor Hubler,
It
you got
just occurred to
something?
me where it was at, and I was like,
Oh.
where
Is
is
that
this?
green building?
That green
Yeah,
garage.
It's
Right over there.
It's right over here. I have no other way
what
to
are we
describe it. We
talking
just all
about?
know it affectionately as the green garage.
I was thinking over by
The
the senior
monstrosity
center, and I'm
across
like,
the street.
where are we talking? And then it just went click. I know which one you're talking about. Okay.
Is any discussion on this one? Councilmember Baldwin.
I just wanted to say, Jason, I liked how you added clearly persuasion skills, debating. Anyway, furthermore, its demolition is crucial to advance the implementation of the downtown parks plan. I see you. I saw that.
I'm using my skills.
I know you are.
So it sounds like no discussion. Can I get a thumbs up to support, thumbs down to not? Majority, yes, okay, included. Pipe saw, Jason.
All
This is
right.
the water fund. We are now switching to the water fund, which has $10.9 million currently in the ending fund balance.
So I think what I'm going to do, I am going to take these out of order. I'm going to take the two smaller ones, and then we'll do the big one last. So bear with me, because I think the big one's going to have more of the discussion, the water meter one. So the guillotine pipe saw, it is a tool that is needed by our water utility in order to cut pipes. It basically goes around the pipe and hugs the pipe, so it does the cutting that way. It allows us to cut all of our different types of water pipe that we have, which includes steel, ductile iron, cast iron, concrete, poly, PVC, and mixed materials. It's also ability to, it has a chain that secures around the actual, and I have a picture if you want to see it, around the actual pipe. It's attached to one of the Vector trucks, and it allows us to cut that pipe, reducing kickback, and also shifting compression cuts, which is why it's safer for staff. It also works underwater and high speed, so it's a lot better than the typical handheld devices. It's really about the safety of the workers when they're out in the field in emergency situations, to be able to quickly cut pipes safely and efficiently. And it's a one-time purchase.
Any discussion on this one? Deputy Mayor Swanman.
Yeah, aren't these like tools that we should normally buy on a regular basis, right, for activities? Why do we see this? You know, it's whatever, it's a tool that they need to do their job. Why is a council member making a decision on this, I guess, right? Is it just
Because it's over 800, it's over $8,500
No, 10,000.
or $10,000.
So
10,000.
there's,
So if it's a new
Tool.
program or service or tool, anything over 10,000, we give a nod to the council so that it makes you feel a little more transparent in the budget process. You know, we can't just go and add things in there to 15,000, 10,000, you know, and you not know about it. So the budget's usually pretty flat, with the exception of the things that are additions. This would be an addition.
yeah, it makes sense to me. I don't, it's kind of odd that we see these things in my mind, because again, you know, it's a tool, they need it regardless of what the cost is. It's kind of like they have to work within their budget, but it's odd that it's not, it's fine. You know, it's like, man, good catch in my mind.
Affects water rates. So of course we want to ask you.
Well, we'll talk here in a minute, right?
That's why I'm doing the last one. We're going to skip that.
So thumbs up to this. This will be included in the budget. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're going to skip over the water meter replacement, because I have a feeling that that's going to have a larger conversation, and deal with the smaller one, which is the capital equipment, which is a purchasing of a new on-site chlorination system for the Peking booster system. It will replace the original equipment, which has become less cost efficient to operate and maintain due to frequency of repairs and challenge of obtaining replacement parts. So this is part of maintaining our water system in order to provide water to the city and needed replacement at the peaking storage tank. And this was the top priority from the water utility.
Councilmember Hubler.
How old is the current system?
I think it was from when we initially built the peaking water tank, so over a decade.
Oh, man, I got it right.
Okay.
Well over a decade, because I've been here for 12 years, and the peaking tank's been here since I've been here. I think the peaking tank was maybe 15 years old.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing.
Deputy Mayor Swatman.
Because we do this regularly, I think these systems, they go out of technology basically, and chlorine systems are ultra important to obviously keeping the water system safe, drinking water. They've had, what did we have, like solid ones, gas ones, different things over a period of time. So my main question, is, didn't we identify this in the water comp plan though? How come this wasn't programmed in or is it in our water comp plan that we?
It was not in the water comp plan, which is why Sherry required us to do the decision card on it.
Yeah.
In the current one, we're kind of limping along, and it's getting harder and harder to keep it repaired due to the obtaining the replacement parts for the different components.
And do you happen to know if this matches the other ones that we did? So
that I do not know off the top of my head.
Okay.
I can get with Jim to get that clarified, but Jim the water utility has been trying to standardize what we use across the water utility as a governing practice.
Yeah, hopefully that's good.
Transparency.
All right.
Thumbs up? We're good? Okay, this will be included. Meter replacement. So before Jason takes us over, the reason you're seeing this is, again, for transparency. The mayor and I chatted about it. It is a little bit different than what was represented 2 years ago to the council. So we wanted Jason to come back and explain the difference and the reason this is necessary.
All right, I'll do my best. So we began moving to what we call AMR meters, or automatically read meters, are the ones that are referred to as radio read meters, which is when the staff drives around and collects the data from the meters. We began that process in 2014, so we're about a decade into this process. The meters that we began installing in 2014 are now toward the end of their projected life cycle cost. As a meter runs, it becomes less effective. It becomes less accurate, which can equate to what we call unmetered water or water lossage. By state law, we're required to keep our unaccountable water at 10% or less. We're currently at 7% which means that of the water that we produce, 7% goes unaccounted for somewhere in the system. As meters age, they become less reliable, both for the read and both for the count. So as part of a kind of ongoing maintenance to our meter system, we have to replace those meters on kind of a rotating basis. The proposal is to start replacing the meters that were done back in 2014 over the next 2 years. They'll be right there where they're starting to be at the end of their useful life as part of our maintenance of our water system. It's important to keep those done so we don't do it all at once and have to come back to council and say, we need multi-millions of dollars to replace every meter in the system. Currently, a meter costs about $452. If we were to come and do, say, more meters all in the future, those meters would be more expensive and the cost would be higher in the future. By doing it on a rotating basis like we're proposing, as you see this as a reoccurring expense, it would be something that we would do every year. We would just start replacing the meters as they get to 10 to 12 years old as we move through the system.
Councilmember McClymans.
What's the failure mode for the meter?
Where?
What is the failure mode? Does it stop? Does the accuracy diminish over time? Does
Yes,
it just stop providing water?
It would not stop providing water unless it's seized up. And in those situations, we would get calls because there's no water going to the house and we can replace them on an individual basis. But as they spin, they become less accurate over time. And that's true with conventional meters or radio read meters. You know, as that meter spins, the calculation systems become less accurate over time.
To the customer's benefit, usually, is what we're told.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey.
And so this is part of, as part of any water utility, you are going to have this ongoing project to replace meters. We're just proposing to do it in a systematic way where we start with the meters that we replaced 10 years ago, and every year we just keep replacing the meters. So it doesn't become a one-time big cost. It's just part of our maintenance activity going forward.
Where are we on getting everything to radio read?
We will be finished up middle of 2026. I think we have about, or sorry, middle of 2025. I apologize. Thanks for the look, Sherry. Middle of 2025, I think we have somewhere around 400 to 500 meters, and that money is already budgeted, and we're moving forward with that project.
Councilmember Rock.
$452 each includes the meter and installation, or just the meter?
Well, the installation is done by our staff. So we just purchase the meter, and then the water utility are out installing that meter. And there's no cost to the customer. This is just part of us maintaining our system.
Okay.
Councilmember Fullerton.
Yeah, so we had talked about quite a few years ago doing the monthly billing versus every other month for water. Does this affect the ability to do the monthly reading?
Not programmatically as a whole, but as the meters age out, it could create additional dead spots in the zone that make it harder for the meter readers to pick up that data.
Do these?
Because they all run on battery as well.
Okay, and do these radio readers, are they EMF? So they're electromagnetic field with those? Because that does cause health concerns, cancers and everything else. And can they be turned off if somebody didn't pay their bill or whatever?
No,
Are
no,
we going
these
to be turning them off because they didn't pay their bill in a timely manner? So this is going to affect.
This is not part of IMI, which is automatic. The automatic system where it comes all the way back as part of an infrastructure where you have a computer here at the city that's monitoring those 24 hours a day. This is just what we've currently been doing for the last decade in the field. So no, and it doesn't. We don't have remote shut off ability. You still have to actually go out and hand crank the shut off at the thing. The meters don't even have that functionality in them. This is a Chuck, do you know the technology that they're using on the actual? It's RFI. It's radio frequency, correct? Yeah, it's just radio frequency, the same thing that's basically in your cell phone that we're using to pick up the radio read. It's low level RF signal. There's a battery and the meter, and those are the two things that can go bad over time, the accuracy of the meter, and then as it reads the battery. And you can't replace the battery, you have to replace the meter.
Translation?
Yes.
Okay. So translation, he's saying currently not in the budget and not authorized by the mayor is the system that would read all the meters without somebody going out and having to drive past them. This system is where the meter reader drives past all of them and what we've been implementing so that we can go forward on a monthly billing program. The other thing for transparency, there are additional dollars already in the budget for there's 2 meter replacement line items in the budget. And so that's really why I wanted to make sure that this came before council. Because I kind of don't even understand the difference between the two.
So we have, I can explain the difference.
Yes, absolutely.
So we have 1 meter replacement program that's already in the budget, which is what council approved years ago, which is going from your standard meter that you have to open up and look at to the radio read meter. So that's one line item. That funding expires at the end of that project, which will be the early part of next year.
Sorry for the off-the-cuff budget discussion here. I was not under that understanding, so that is still budgeted in 2026. But I can remove that.
Yes.
Okay. So I think there was a misunderstanding when you and I chatted, because that's why I was like, wait a second. The council was told that this would end 2025, so why do we have money? So that makes me feel a little better that that is ending. And I think it would have made a lot more sense then that, yes, obviously you're going to need meter replacements. I felt, and what the mayor and I chatted about was a representation of having both. And that seemed like an awful lot of money to us because it equates to about $600,000 a year.
Yeah, there was a bigger expenditure in 2025 because we had the completion of the current system plus the $400,000 to begin the maintenance replacement. So 2025, you would have a larger expenditure because you have kind of overlapping programs. In 2026, it would just be the 420, which would be just for the maintenance replacement. There is another line item that they use for meters, but it's for new development. So we separate that out. So we're tracking the costs that when we have to go out because there's a new subdivision going in and we have to purchase 19 meters all at once to be able to put all the new water meters in for the for those programs. And that is those monies are recouped because the developer building that subdivision pays for that water meter, but we have to order it and install it. So that's the second line item is for development.
So I'm back to where I initially started, that this still will cost, this will be an increase to the general people paying water rates. Because currently we have budgeted, I believe it's 300 or 250 in each.
Yes.
And my discussions, and so this is where the mayor and I were having a discussion, my prior discussions with Ryan Johnstone was that one of those would completely go away and we would only have the replacement / new line item and not the putting everything out for radio read. So I'm just wanting to make sure we're all on the same page.
So basically the line item that currently has the replacement in it, the replacement to go from non-radio read to radio read ends this year. What we don't have anywhere in the budget is what do we do about the meters that we installed 10 to 12 years ago?
This would be replacing that. And so
Yes.
it's essentially still going to cost more to the ratepayers because this has not been included for future. And so our next rate analysis is 2027 for 2028 rates. This would increase that.
It would go into the rate analysis. I don't know how it would affect the current rate, whether it increase it or keep it.
Assuming things stayed equal, this would increase it because we had penciled that this was going to end in 2026, which was what I was representing to the mayor, which is what the decision card from the prior budget, 23-24, had indicated. So that was the information I was going off when the mayor and I were discussing, and that's why we're here talking about this here.
And that
it's a different representation.
Yeah, and that is true. The money needed to do the switch over from standard meter radio read meters goes away. I don't think what was included in that conversation was what do you do with the end of life cycle meters, because we're actually also delayed. We were supposed to be done last year, but with ordering and COVID,
it actually wasn't as represented in the 23-24 budget. The council did not approve that. So it actually wasn't.
Well, I guess we're supposed to be done this year.
25.
I thought we were supposed to be done.
Yeah, no, it wasn't approved in the budget. I went back and looked because I thought it was too, and I looked and it was not approved by the council at that time. So part of why we haven't switched to monthly billing is because the council last time didn't approve switching everybody over to radio read. They said, it's not going to take
2020. Yeah, so yeah, right. 2025, it would end. But
this would replace it.
And this would replace it so that we can begin to replace the meters that are at the end of their life cycle, which was not discussed on the getting us over to a new program.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Realistically, this is a 3-part, so I just need quick answers on this. Like, how many people need these meters?
Everyone in the city.
Which is how many on water?
Everybody in our water utility, and I think we have
14,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so with 14,000 then, the first meters that were installed in 2014 are part of this AMR system, correct?
Correct.
So you're telling me that every 10 years, we have to replace 14,000 meters? Like, I know it's staggered,
Yes,
but essentially 14,000 meters are being replaced essentially every 10 years.
yes.
There's not a better system than that?
No, the meters,
You have to replace the entire meter?
yes, there's no way to replace the battery. There's no way to, it's one component. And so even with the old non-radio read meters, it's, you're on this replacement cycle. And so they are, it's a 10 to 15 year lifetime window on those. So we're starting at 10, knowing that it might take us a little bit of time to get to them. So yeah, every 10 to 12 years, you're replacing.
This system or even the previous meters were replaced every 10 years?
I
I want to make sure I'm hearing you right.
I don't know how often we had to replace the non-radio reads. We didn't look into that because
You didn't have batteries.
I mean, it seems like, it seems like you would make a system, not you, right? But the manufacturers would manufacture a system where the battery can just be replaced rather than the entire system. That is ridiculous. That is waste. And it's waste of manpower labor too, because they have to replace 14,000 every 10 years.
On you.
What in the world? You have to throw away.
All right, I think Councilmember Fullerton.
Talk about climate change.
Like, for real. What a waste.
Councilmember Fullerton, go ahead.
Is there a way for this particular budget that we could only replace the standard? Do we still have standard?
Mm-hmm. And that's already budgeted. That's not part of this.
Okay, so this is
Current
The 2014
the ones that are,
dying.
this is only for
radio read ones.
the ones that are already radio read?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what I was.
And if we can't put it off another year because then we're going to be behind another year and another budget cycle and another schedule.
There has to be a better system. This is.
Yeah. Wow. Councilmember Davis.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, yucking what they're saying, this is an ongoing thing. It says right at the bottom, this is an ongoing future biennial budget for the city. So this is not something that's going to go away. It's going to be included from now on because of this system. So
The only thing I could offer the council, if they're really concerned, is because 2014 and 2025 is 11 years, is we could start in 2026. So what that would mean is the $300,000 that's already in Sherry's budget for 2026 would only change by $120,000. So the decision card would go from 820 this biennium down to 120 because Sherry and I are now getting on the same page, and I do apologize that she kept $300,000 in 2026 already that we don't need to make the transfer. Since that's already in the budget with 120,000 more, we would just push this replacement program to start in 2026 versus 2025. And that, I don't know if that helps soften the blow, but that means it would only be a difference of 120 over projected spending.
Councilmember Hubler.
When previous councils voted to move to these automatic readers, did they know that there was going to be this replacement
failure
cost? Did anybody know that? Was that put
From
out?
my perspective, I would say no, because I didn't even realize that. And that's where the kind of miscommunication came here. So I would say no.
Say no to.
The standard meter reader did not need to be replaced?
No, it did need to be.
Battery?
It did need to be replaced because the accuracy, they get worn, they're in constant use, so they do need to be replaced. The question was, what's the time framing? And I didn't look into that because we're getting rid of those meters, but the city has had to go through and replace the standard meters with standard meters in the past before we switched to the radio.
But probably not every 10 years.
Yeah, I just hesitate to answer that.
lived in
But
the
like I
house
said,
longer.
if the council wants to start the program, but start it at a much lower cost, that's why I would say my proposal would be just increase what's already in the budget for 2026 by $120,000. don't do any replacements in 2025. Let's finish the installation and then begin the replacement in 2026, which is in 12 years. So we're still within that window of life cycle.
That would be my thought. Councilmember Baldwin? And we'll
You're the expert. I want to make sure I say that and we understand that. We really do. You're telling me there's no other system out there where you don't have to trash 14,000 of them every 10 years. That seems like not logical.
I am not aware of any other system that where you wouldn't have to replace the meters within that 10 to 15 year time window.
Where you don't just take a battery or something or a tune-up or I don't even know.
No.
I don't even know.
No. And like I said, I can get the true experts in here, which is Jim Miracle and Todd, who are the water experts.
Yeah.
This is sometimes where I'm being their spokesman and I'm doing the best I can.
We appreciate it. Yeah.
We do have even more technical experts.
Yeah.
In my conversation with Jim, what he's really trying to do is make sure that we're proactively maintaining our water system. And in knowing what Jim is after, and if the council understands that this is a reoccurring expense, what it would change in the budgets going forward, the way I proposed it, is the $300,000 that's currently in the budget would basically be remained and basically just inflated by 100,000. I know that's a lot of money, but it's going past 2026. It would just, that money that we're already spending would just stay in the budget. It wouldn't come out.
I have a solution that I think might be more palatable here. Since Jason's saying 2025 isn't necessary, and for the sake of time, we still have 2 more decision cards. How about we bring this back with the experts as a budget amendment for the 2026 budget? That way you're not even bringing this forward. This is a no for now. Jason will come back the end of 2025 with the experts, possibly with quorum. I think they would maybe be able to speak.
Do we want to leave the $300,000 already?
That's in the budget already.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's already in the budget. And then that decision card is essentially tabled. You'll see a budget amendment discussion with some experts about the meters. Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we can do that.
That works for me.
All right, on to the sewer.
So the sewer fund is about, the first project's about, these are all about maintaining our sewer in emergencies. The first decision card is purchasing basically standby pumps for lift stations 2, 9, and 21. This is a couple reasons. One, if there's there's a failure in the pump, we can go in and replace that pump in our lift station without having to take it offline and try to figure out how to fix the pump. We could just simply replace it. Second, it allows us to, when a pump does fail, put the new pump in and then rebuild the old pump. So this is all 3 of these are basically standby pumps in case of a failure in the lift stations.
Any discussion? Oh, Deputy Mayor Swami.
So again, sewer fund comp plan, sewer comp plan, this was not in the comp plan that we just recently passed, right?
The sewer comp plan that we passed in 2019 did not envision buying standby pumps. One thing I will point out, yeah, they didn't envision buying the standby pumps.
Because I would assume that some of these are probably the folks out there and the maintenance folks are like, hey, these things take forever to get because they've had a lot of supply chain issues nowadays where it's kind of like, in the past you were able to kind of like, get spares or maybe get them worked on. But nowadays some of these things are like, oh yeah, that's like 6 months out. So they probably maybe changed their philosophy a little bit and decided that they needed these spares. And hopefully you guys have identified that these are critical spares and not just like nice to have spares.
In talking with Lance, these are the pumps that are the stations that are critical, and we don't have spare pumps that if they fail, we can't just pull something and put it in. So this is a way of basically being able to take the failed pump out and put the new pump in. And these are sewer lift stations that run 24 hours, well, not 24 hours a day, as needed, depending on the capacity of the wet well, and they all run at different schedules.
So yes, Deputy Mayor, that's exactly what I had heard was that these were identified as harder to get items.
Yeah. Some of
Take a
them are
longer
almost impossible
turnaround,
to
which
do.
would be a real bad thing.
Councilmember McClymons.
So these are not redundant pumps. They are spare pumps that will need to be installed.
Correct. So if at 3 o'clock in the morning, lift station 2, the pump fails, instead of trying to figure out what's going on or having to fix it with it turned off, they pull the pump, put the new pump in, we can fix the old pump, and then that becomes the spare if the new pump ever fails. It's a way to, this is closer to, I think, what Councilmember Baldwin was is how do we fix it and get it back into service? This allows us to take the old one out, fix it, rebuild it, and then put it in if it can be, or purchase a new one, depending on what the failure is with that pump.
Why, if you have a hard to find item, why would you replace it with another hard to find item?
I don't know. Most sewer pumps are pretty long lead items.
No, it just takes forever.
I need to get in that business, is making those pumps. You know what I mean?
Electronics and pumps, we're just finding them to be
Oh, yeah.
typical long lead items
Hard to get now. I don't know why. It's a good question.
post-COVID.
Well,
Yeah,
are there ones that aren't harder to get?
don't worry, guys.
Then you'd buy two, right? Then you'd-
Well, it's also at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, it's really not possible to go down and buy a pump.
Right.
This is all about building redundancy in our system. So if there is a catastrophic failure or an emergency where we cannot get to a place to purchase things, we have the spares in-house to do the work.
Let me ask the question a different way. So I think it would be more appealing to me if they were all Fairbanks 50 horsepower pumps. Because then I could buy 2 instead of 3, and I'd have 2 spares. But I'm now buying 3 unique pumps.
It's because each lift station has a different horsepower pump that they run. And so the smaller stations run a smaller pump. The generators are sized to those smaller pumps. So if you were wanting to use one pump for the whole city, we would have to basically put what we put in lift station 17 in every lift station.
What if I had 2 spare pumps that I use that were sized large enough to swap into any station?
That's what Lance is saying. We need 3 spares, which is the 40, the 75, and the
I
50.
think what he's asking is, aren't they interchangeable?
I don't know how interchangeable they are between lift stations because our lift stations range in age from very recent to very, very old. Built by different contractors at different times.
All designed by parametrics.
Not all of them.
I don't believe they were all designed by, some of them were designed by private developers, some were designed by different consulting firms.
I'm learning here. I'm just being educated. I'm trying to process. Okay.
And I'm trying to do the best to convey what I'm hearing from the technical experts, and sometimes I might not have all of the chops, so I do apologize.
All right.
I'm looking for thumbs up,
thumbs up.
thumbs down. Okay, it'll include. And Jason, last one.
The last one is basically a maintenance contract. We have 26 lift stations that are, and we have generators that support those 26 lift stations. So when there's a power outage, we can make sure that the lift stations continue to work. Currently, we don't have a way of servicing those the generators for those lift stations. So this is a proposal to bring in a contractor to go through and service our 26 lift stations in 2025. While this would not be a reoccurring item for 2026, it would likely be a reoccurring item for each biennium as we go to maintain those lift stations.
Councilmember McClymons.
Do they actually do a load test on the generators when they do the maintenance? Do you know?
Sometimes.
Can I get?
That's part of that.
I would think so, and I would assume that would be part of it, but I can confirm that.
Okay.
The load's kind of fixed, but.
It's not like they can shunt it and say, okay, here we go.
I'll entertain
Any-
thumbs up, thumbs down. All right, I'll include this in the budget.
All right.
Thank you. And you get to have fun again with more decision cards next time.
Thank you, everyone. And with no other discussion items, we are adjourned.
We are
Thank you.
Words on the
Yeah.
That was it. So I was wondering if I was